Natural Habitat Adventures would like to welcome you to this online presentation today, The Amazing Migration of Monarch Butterflies. We're joined today by one of Natural Habitat Adventures' longtime expedition leaders. Her name is Astrid Frisch, and Astrid was trained as a biologist at Mexico's National University and has been leading natural history expeditions throughout Mexico since 1991. For years, she has introduced our guests to her country's most remarkable wildlife and wild places, from monarch butterfly sanctuaries of central Mexico, which is what we're here to talk about today, to sea turtle nesting sites in the south and humpback whales of Banderas Bay. Her knowledge and passion as a naturalist are unsurpassed, and her warmth and good nature make her one of our most popular expedition leaders. And when she's not working for us out in the field, she's actively involved in humpback whale conservation and research in her home city of Puerto Vallarta. And she's actually broadcasting live today from Mexico, and we're delighted to have her here with us. Welcome, Astrid.
Hi, Leah. Thanks for this nice introduction. Hi to everybody, and thank you for joining me to the Amazing Migration of the Monarch Butterflies webinar. In the next hour, I'll try to talk to you about this really amazing trip. It's really very special to have all these butterflies gathering together in just one part in the central highlands of Mexico. As they were mentioning, I've been guiding this trip since 1991, and I'm never bored about it. Actually, every year when the monarchs, the season is over, I never want to say goodbye, and I'm always waiting for the next season to get started, because it's really a magical experience and something that you have to witness on your own to really understand it and feel it. It's really magical. That's why I like going back every year for so many years now. So now I'll tell you a little bit about it. We'll try first to start. Of course, this trip takes place in Mexico. The blue dot in the center of the map is not a lake. It's just the place where this trip takes place, nearby Mexico City. But also, if you take a look to the map, you'll see the different colors, and this represents different vegetation in the area. And basically, as you can see, there's many types of vegetation. In Mexico, you can find all the different habitats that exist in the world except for the tundra. Rainforest, pine forest, shrub, desert, you name it, we have it. We have all these different environments that gives us a very high rank on the biodiversity compared to other countries. We are one of the most mega diverse countries in the world. We have the first place in diversity of pine trees and oak trees, the fourth place in diversity of mammals, the second place in diversity of reptiles. We have more birds than United States and Canada all together. And well, this is a very extended list. I don't want to bore you with that, but it's just important to know that in Mexico we have all this variety in wildlife, and the reason to have this is our location within the continent, but also that we have a very varied topography. And in this monarch butterfly trip, it takes place in the transvolcanic belt, which is part of this rugged topography. So just to look at this a little bit more closer, the trip takes place starting in Mexico City, and from there we travel a little bit northwest to that funny loop on your left that says Reserva de la Biosfera Santuario Mariposa Monarca, the Monarch Butterfly Reserve. And the dot right there, that's the town of Angangueo, where we stay for a couple of nights because it's so close to two beautiful monarch butterfly sanctuaries. We also visit the city a little bit down below called Valle de Bravo. So all this is located within the transvolcanic belt. And as the name says, there are lots of volcanoes and mountains around this area. The photo in the bottom is the Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl volcano that you can see sometimes landing into Mexico City. Actually, I took this picture myself on a gorgeous day just from the airplane when landing into Mexico City. And the other volcano on the right top corner, that's the Sinatenca volcano. That's the Nahuatl name, very difficult to pronounce. But the other name is the Snowy Peak of Toluca volcano. This is nearby the city of Toluca. We'll pass it on our way venturing to the Monarch Sanctuary. and this is located above 14,000 feet above sea level. So gorgeous scenery and mountain hills will take us to see this wonderful migration of the monarch butterflies. So it's amazing to think that these tiny creatures that actually look quite fragile, even they are not, will perform one of the most amazing migrations in the world. And also, if you look at these monarchs, you'll see they have this flashy coloration, orange, black, and white. So keep in mind that in nature, whenever you see a very flashy animal, usually it means I'm toxic, get away from me. So monarchs are not the exception. They are toxic animals. That's why they are so flashy. So the way we learned that was actually by Dr. Lincoln Brower, the most renowned researcher on monarchs. And to prove that monarchs were toxic, he did this funny experiment. Well, actually funny for us, not very funny to the blue jays if you look at the slide. And basically what he did, he was feeding these monarch butterflies to the blue jays. So if you see the first blue jay is eating his monarch butterfly, very happy, but then in the slide in the middle is like the blue jay is not feeling okay anymore. His heart is pumping faster, his stomach is upset, and finally the poor blue jay is throwing up. So animals learn quite fast. This is to tell them I'm toxic, and they are never going to try a monarch butterfly again. And the word spreads around. So there are very few animals that are able to eat monarch butterflies and to deal with these cardiac leukocytes. The cardiac leukocytes, they get them from the milkweed. Sorry for that. Monarch butterflies, actually the larvae, are 100% depending on milkweed. If we don't have milkweed, we don't have monarch butterflies. So that's their only food source, milkweed. And we have over 100 different species of milkweed basically around the United States to Canada. Some milkweeds are very toxic, some others are mildly toxic. So some monarchs will be very toxic and some others will be mildly toxic. But this doesn't make much of a difference for the predators. They know they are toxic. They're not going to be picking around to see if they are mildly toxic or super toxic. So basically, most of the animals will leave them alone. But in Mexico, there are 3 species that actually develop a little bit of a capacity of dealing with this cardiac leukocyte toxin. And these are 2 birds, the black-headed grosbeak and the black-backed oriole, which if you notice, they also have similar coloration to the monarch butterflies. And we also have the black-eared mouse that actually makes a tiny migration every winter into the sanctuaries because they know the feast is going to be served once the monarchs get there. So these 3 species of predators eat around 10% of the monarchs that visit Mexico every winter. 10% might not sound a lot, but if you think about 10% of 300 to 500 million monarchs, then it's really a lot. It's a huge food source for these creatures. It's just like fest being served for them, great buffet. So, well, these monarchs, it's very important to remember that they are a cosmopolitan species. This means that we can find monarchs in many places. And also we can find monarchs year-round in tropical places. We can find monarchs in places like Australia and Costa Rica year-round, for instance. And these monarchs, like in Australia and Costa Rica, are non-migratory monarchs. If there's milkweed year-round, there's no reason to bother and do a long migration, so they have an easy life. But these non-migratory monarchs have a lifespan of approximately a month. And then the migratory generation, that's the one that comes and visits Mexico, this migratory generation gets to live between 6 to 9 months. This is an amazing long life span for any butterfly out there in the planet. So just for that, it makes them very unique. And the secret for these monarchs to be able to get live this long life is they don't get sexually mature. Basically, they go to a sexual diapause, and that's the way they're going to stay younger for a little bit more than the other butterflies and be able to do this wonderful migration. So monarchs are not an endangered species. They are, the species itself is in very good shape. What is endangered and what has Canada, Mexico, and United States working in their conservation is this amazing migratory phenomenon that concentrates between 300 to 500 million butterflies every winter in the Mexican transvolcanic belt. So how do we find out? Imagine 300 to 500 millions of butterflies, and this was a secret for many, many years. This amazing gathering of butterflies was just discovered in 1975 by Dr. Fred Urquhart, a Canadian that devoted around 30 years of his life tracking butterflies. He came out with this idea of placing a tag on the butterflies and then following them around until finally, with so many years and too much effort, he discovered that the butterflies were coming to Mexico. The news were given to the world through the National Geographic in 1976. So this is very modern news, actually, if you think about it. It's very recent that we discovered this amazing migration of the monarchs. So these monarchs actually do this great migration. We have two populations of monarchs, the one that are west of the Rocky Mountains that also do a migration, but it's a small migration from around Washington area to California. But they they don't congregate in big numbers, and they are very separated, and there are very few numbers compared to the huge population that comes from the east of the Rocky Mountains. And if you look at the slide, you'll see that it's a very complex pattern of the migration, because depending on where you're coming from, you'll be flying either straight south, or you will be flying a little bit like east, southeast, and then south. So it depends where in United States and Canada the monarchs come from. That's going to be the way of their migration. And remember, this is a new migration that hatches around September, when the days are getting longer and shorter, and colder. And that's what is going to trigger these monarchs to know that they are going to be the migratory generation, that they have to go to sexual diapause, they have to feed more on nectar, and then they have to start flying down to Mexico to spend the winter, get away from the cold weather in the north, and wait for the milkweed to be ready again in the springtime. So that's why monarchs bother so much in coming to Mexico. They usually get to Mexico around the 1st and 2nd of November to this fir forest, or Oyamel forest. And it's really amazing because they arrive pretty much in time between November the 1st and the 2nd. That is when we Mexicans celebrate the Day of the Dead. And this is quite a very unique coincidence, because for the Aztecs, there's this belief that when we die, our souls become butterflies. So there you go, you have all these millions of butterflies, souls of our ancestors, congregating in our forest to our celebration of the Day of the Dead. It's really unique. So, well, they arrive first to the sanctuaries, and for a little while, they're going to just roost in the trees. They're going to wait there for about a month, and they are not going to be flying around the place. They're a little bit in a hibernation status, and they are recovering from the 3-mile journey that bring them all the way from South Canada and United States to Mexico. So around the end of December, they start finally getting active in warm days. They're going to be flying around the place. They're going to be looking for water and a little bit of nectar, but there's really not much flowers blooming this time of the year. It's winter in our forest, so there's not much food source. It's more drinking. That's why, as I mentioned, monarchs that are migrating, they are going to feast in nectar on their way down to Mexico, but because there's not much to eat when they get back, when they get here to Mexico. So finally, after flowering all over the place, the weather starts warming up a little bit, and usually around March, mid-March, or the end of February, depending on how warm the year is, monarchs are going to get sexually mature, and they're going to start mating all over the place. But there's a very big trick here, and that is that there's no milkweed around the sanctuaries, so there's no place for monarchs to lay their eggs. So basically, the mating in Mexico doesn't serve a big purpose. Basically, the males that mate in Mexico are going to die in Mexico. And there's this theory that basically these males are not strong enough to continue the journey, and that's why they just try to pass their genes to the next generation, even if they cannot fly. But basically, the females they mate with, they are not going to lay eggs. They are going to absorb the protein that comes in this sperm in the bag that the male is giving the female, and that's going to give the female a little bit extra fuel for her to do the migration in search of milkweed back north. So basically, pretty much in time around March 21st, when the days are getting longer and hotter, that's what triggers the monarchs to know it's time to go back and look for milkweed. So the strongest males and females are going to start the journey back to continue with this migration. And here you can see the map again. Now it's in the opposite direction. We have the monarchs leaving the Mexican transvolcanic belt, getting to Texas and Louisiana. And as soon as they find milkweed, they're going to mate there, they're going to lay their eggs, and they're going to die. And this is going to be finally the end of this amazing migratory generation. From there on, we have more monarchs hatching, but these are the non-migratory monarchs. And they will, just like any other regular monarch, they will hatch, eat milkweed, and then they will become butterflies, and then they will start flying a little bit more north and east. They, in search of more milkweed, they will mate, lay their eggs, and die in just like a 1-month lifespan, as I mentioned before. So monarchs are following the milkweed until their most northern limit, which is marked there up in the map just on the top of the Great Lakes. And basically, this is a migration that is done by different generations. Depending on the year, it will be between 3 to 5 generations to fulfill this amazing journey. So now let's go back to Mexico and look a little bit to the area where the monarchs are. So in the first map in black and white, you can see just spots. That's the spots where the monarchs arrive. Remember, they're looking for the Oyamel-Fir tree. Fir trees only grow at an altitude of about 9,000 to 11,000 feet. So monarchs are not looking for the trees themselves. They are looking for the habitat this forest provides. They need the cold, they need the humidity, and they need the sun, all in good balance. Very hot years means monarchs will be very active in Mexico, expending a lot of the energy they need for their migration still to the north. And of course, very cold winters can be trouble if we have a snowstorm or something like that, can mean trouble for the butterflies. So, well, in Mexico, in 1980, it was the first presidential decree to protect the monarch butterflies, but it was only like isolated spots, as you can see in the map. But if you think about it, it was only 4 years after the monarchs were discovered to the world. Finally, of course, it took a little bit longer to do things right, and in 2000, we finally got our biosphere reserve, which in Mexico is the highest rank in the national park system. And right now, the biosphere reserve has over 56,000 hectares. The dark green is the core zone of the reserve, and the light green is the buffer zone. So another close-up view here, you'll see all the red dots are the sanctuaries, because the monarchs come to every year to around 10 to 15 different spots or sanctuaries within all this transvolcanic belt. About all these sanctuaries, only 4 are open to the public, and we visit 3 of these sanctuaries. So we're doing a big effort to protect this great monarch butterfly migration. Actually, World Wildlife Fund sponsors one of the biggest conservation projects for monarchs in Mexico. The place where the monarchs arrive belongs to the local communities. So basically, World Wildlife Fund is paying the locals not to use their logging rights. They're paying them a fee not to use their logging rights, and they're also paying them a conservation service fee for protecting their forests. So people are getting paid for protecting the forest and keeping it in good shape for the monarchs to keep coming back every year. Besides this huge project, there's a lot that's been done by the Mexican government and different non-profit organizations to stop illegal logging. And we're very happy to say that since 2010, illegal logging has dropped in Mexico. And also something that has been increasing is reforestation. We have all sorts of reforestation by the government, reforestation by the local communities, which now are getting into the forestry business and into the tree nursery business, and all sorts of non-profits and just crazy people like me, for instance, planting some trees. You can see me there on the slide on the right side, of course, with these tiny trees. We plant them about, my husband and myself, like 10 years ago in this land that was completely eroded. We're on the way to one of the sanctuaries. We just asked for permission, got the trees, gathered a group of friends, and went to plant these trees. And now they are growing, and they are ready for the first spot, and the erosion stopped there. So we are very happy to see our trees growing very easily here. The climate is good, so there's not much you need to do for reforestation to work in the highlands of Mexico. Tourism, of course, is also very important because people coming to visit the monarchs gives the interest to the locals to protect their forest. This is where they get their income to feed their families for a few months. So if there's no tourism and if there's no conscious tourism, then of course the forest and the monarchs will lose their value for the locals. So there's a lot being done in order to help people protect the monarchs and also to encourage visitors to come and see this amazing phenomenon. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the places we visit and the trip itself. These photographs you see now is from the first sanctuary we visit that is called El Rosario. El Rosario was the first sanctuary open to the public, and actually is the most tourist of all because it's the sanctuary that receives the biggest amount of tourists, but it also receives the biggest colonies of monarch butterflies, so it's quite a combination. So that's why they have this place a little bit more prepared to receive tourists, like this staircase that you can see there. So this trip is what we call a little bit moderate, flexible in terms of physical rate, because we have to work our way up into the mountains in order to enjoy the monarchs in the trees. So it's not a long hike. We're talking about just a mile and a half hike up in the mountains to see the butterflies. So it's not long distance, but it's steep. We're talking about going from 9,000 to 10,000 feet in approximately just 1.5 miles. But don't be scared. It's not that difficult. Actually, we take our own pace. There's never a hurry. There's enough time. And there's always the encouragement of arriving to the sanctuaries and seeing this view. This is what usually we see from El Rosario in the afternoons. We get there a little bit in the afternoon, so that's when the butterflies are going back to the trees to roost. So we just see them hanging there, just getting ready to spend the night. And if we're lucky, we might see some of the birds starting with their predation. You never know. If it's cold enough, birds will be active already when we are there. And it's quite interesting to see them feeding on the monarchs. The other place we visit is Cinque, and this is one of my favorites. The forest is really amazing. It's in a great shape. It's a gorgeous place. And actually, here the butterflies are a little bit farther away, so we use horses to get closer to the monarch butterflies. But you don't need horseback riding skills in order to get on these horses. These horses are so sturdy, so nice. They know the trail so well, and they lead them for us. So you just have to just get on the horse and let them get you closer to the monarch butterflies and enjoy the ride, enjoy the forest while the horses do the hard part of the trip and bring us closer to the monarch butterflies. There's always plenty of time to enjoy the butterflies all over the place in a nice warm weather. Butterflies will be going all over the place. Sometimes they will get on you to get some sun. Sometimes they are trying to drink some water. So it's really amazing. Here's one monarch trying to get a little bit of nectar. And also another thing about Cinque is it has these gorgeous views of the volcanic belt and the valley below. The third sanctuary we visit is Piedra Rada. This sanctuary is in the state of Mexico. And again, horses lead the way up a very steep hill. This is a different sanctuary because this is a secondary growth forest. So the trees are much younger than the trees at Cinque. So even you will think, why do we visit three places? Well, the three places are different. Believe it or not, monarchs and forests, scenery can be completely different. And also the location of the butterflies can be different. So the perspective, the way you look at the butterflies might change. So that's why it's very nice to visit all these three places, all different, and enjoy more and more of this time with the monarchs. Of course, we also take time. This is a little bit more relaxed trip, like after hiking and horseback riding. There's always a time just to sit down and enjoy this marvel of nature surrounding you. We also, the group of guides, are going to take some time to explain you about the details of the butterflies, because first you get mesmerized by this the generality of this spectacle, but then it's the little details of the monarchs that are also amazing. It's really fabulous to be seated in the forest and surrounded by something like this. It's kind of magical. And we also have a photography trip. If you are an amateur photographer or just starting to get into photography or really are a good photographer, this will be a trip that I will recommend for you. We run this photography trip only once a year, and it has one extra day. We go back to El Rosario during the morning in order to take more pictures of the butterflies. Believe it or not, but taking pictures of the butterflies is quite difficult. They are always moving. Light is a problem. They are also translucent. So it's very, very special and kind of like a good difficulty grade to take good picture of the monarchs. So it's kind of fun always to enjoy and try to get new photos. And I repeat again, you don't need to be a good photographer. This trip is made for a lot of amateur photographers. Even if you're learning to use your camera, it's a great also trip, just a little bit more focused in photography with the same activities, but just one extra day. Other wildlife encounters we will have will be mainly birds. There are mammals in the area, but they are very skittish, very hard to see. But there are great birding opportunities, and for those of you that love birds, will do take time to go and try to see them. You saw pictures of the red warbler, even in the signs. We have the white-eared hummingbirds, orioles, woodpeckers, vermilion flycatchers. So it's really, really nice birding in this area also available. Another thing that I love about this trip is the local people. Of course, they don't speak English, but they are so nice. They're always smiling, they're really friendly, they're trying to talk to you. So it's very nice to practice a little bit of Spanish or just try to interact with the locals and enjoy a little bit more of this place of Mexico. We're going to be visiting this area that is really far away from the beaten track, and not many tourists go there to all this area except for the monarchs. So it's really nice, very typical Mexico. We also have some Indians in the area that are the Masawa Indians, and sometimes we are able to see them and hear them speaking in Masawa. And of course, the food. The food is amazing. Just thinking about this trip really makes me hungry. It's the best typical Mexican food you'll ever had is going to be on this trip. You name it, enchiladas, mole, guacamole, pozole, whatever you like to try about Mexican food, and probably more you ever thought we have on this trip. So besides being a great nature trip, it's a really nice gourmet experience with all this Mexican food. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this trip starts in Mexico City, and I really like to recommend to arrive into Mexico City one day earlier, and basically for two reasons. There are many things to do and to see in Mexico City. This is the Fine Art Palace. We have the Anthropology Museum, which is one of the finest museums in the world. We have the pyramids of Teotihuacan, all very nearby that you can do in one day. Well, not all in one day, but you can do one of these activities in one day. But the other reason besides sightseeing and enjoying this great city is that the Mexico City is located at an altitude of 7,500 feet above sea level. And this trip is a little bit about high altitude. As I mentioned before, monarchs are located at an altitude of 9,000 to 10,000 feet above sea level. So arriving one day earlier into Mexico City will get you acclimatized and help you to struggle less on the rest of the trip. So it's really good to try to arrive one day early if you feel like it or if you're coming from sea level. This picture is from the town of Angangeo, the one that is nearby the Del Rosario and Chinqua Sanctuary. As you see, it's really between the mountains. That's what the name of Angangeo means. It's a lovely mining town, very beautiful, located at around 8,200 feet above sea level. And here we stay at a nice but very rustic hotel. And basically it's a little bit chilly. Mainly the trips around January can be quite cold. We're talking about temperatures around sometimes 30 or a little bit lower at night. And we don't have central heating in Mexico. Don't ask me why, but that's the way it goes. So basically it can be cold mainly at night in your rooms. And remember, sometimes we do get snowstorms occasionally at the sanctuaries. The other place we're going to visit is Valle de Bravo. This is a beautiful magic town, and it's built around a lake. It's another place that we are going to visit, and here in Valle we are going to take a little bit of a break to enjoy more about Mexico, enjoy the art crafts market and also the food market, keep learning about Mexican culture. And we're also going to visit a very beautiful park that's called the Bridal Veil Park with gorgeous, this very beautiful waterfall you can see. And it's a nice birding opportunity and just easy hiking compared to the rest of the trip. Here in Valle, we're going to stay in the Abandaro Hotel, a little bit more luxury, located in this gorgeous golf course surrounded by gardens. Another great place to do some birding and just relax after all that hiking and horseback riding. We give you a little bit of a break before getting you on the horses again for our last visit to the monarchs. So it's really a nice, nice places that we're going to visit through the trip. And just the cherry on the cake, right at the end of the trip, we're going to visit the Botanical Garden and Stained Glass in the city of Toluca in the downtown. This place has the biggest stained glass in the world. We're talking of over 3,000 square meters of stained glass. And it's really fabulous because you have to imagine this great stained glass surrounding all this gorgeous collection of plants and flowers. And the name of the cosmovitral means the cosmos stained glass. So the story of the stained glass goes around the creation of life and the universe. It's a really unique piece of art that we visit at the end of the trip. And if you're into migrations, in this trip you can go from the migration of the tiny, tiny creature, the monarch butterfly, to a huge, one of the biggest creatures in the world, the humpback whale that comes to Mexico also to spend the winter, but humpbacks come to Mexico to mate and to calve. So they come to my hometown, to Puerto Vallarta. That's where I live. So it's an easy short flight from Mexico City to Puerto Vallarta. You can do this trip before the monarchs or after, and then you will spend 3 days out in the 3 times out in the water, watching these spectacular creatures mating, fighting, singing, hopefully playing around, hopefully some calves learning with their mothers. That's a boat we go out. It's a very nice, comfortable boat that fits maximum 12 persons. And we go out, as I mentioned, 3 times. And one of the times is in the afternoon. We go at sunset to try to record the songs of the male humpbacks and also hopefully to have a beautiful sunset. And if super lucky, we can get a humpback breaching with a gorgeous sunset. It doesn't happen every time, I have to tell you that. I worked many, many years for that picture, but you never know. You just have to keep your fingers crossed. We also can see dolphins around. We have bottlenose dolphins, spinner dolphins, and spotted dolphins in the bay. And we also visit the estuaries and see a crocodile conservation project. So it's a very nice way to end this migration trip, or started it with a huge creature and go to the little monarch butterfly. So just to finish, I would like to say that visiting the monarch butterflies is one of the most amazing experiences you can ever have. This is the only place in the world where you can hear the monarch's wings beat. It's really magical just to be quiet. The sign on the right says, "Please be quiet, thank you." And basically because sometimes you just sit down and be completely quiet and listen to the butterflies flutter around you. This can be one of the most touching experiences you will have. It's almost like a mystical, peaceful experience to be surrounded by all these monarchs in the forest. So, well, I hope you enjoyed. For now, it will be all. I'm sure hopefully you'll have some questions. So if you want to let me know.
Thank you, Astrid. That was fascinating. We do have some questions, and I'd like to invite our other audience members to send your questions in now. You'll use the question box over on the right to do that. If you need a reminder, just click on the orange button that you see in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and that will give you access to our question box. So we have this question, Astrid, that came in early on, and it says, I read that there is a decline in the amount of monarchs that are present. How true is this?
Well, unfortunately, it's true. There is a decline, but there are many things to consider about this decline. The first one is that we only have information from the population of monarchs since 1996. So it's in terms of insects, and this population is recent history. And we don't know how the numbers used to be before that. So from 96 to right now, the numbers are declining, but it can change very fast from one year to the other. The other thing is we are still learning on how to count more accurately the numbers of butterflies. A good example is we had a huge snowstorm in 2002, where about 70 to 80% of the monarchs were killed with the snowstorm in Mexico. So you can imagine we have all these millions of butterflies dead in the ground. And then researchers start counting. And before this storm, the estimation was that we received about 300 millions of monarch butterflies. After the snowstorm, they say, well, we think it's more around 500 millions of monarch butterflies coming. So, you know, 200 millions miscount can be a lot. And the other thing is, even the monarchs are declining. We have to keep in mind that there are insects, and insects can recover really, really fast. Actually, we always say that if we destroy the planet, the only animals that are going to be left are insects because of their easy ways of adapting and the fast that they can adapt. And another, again, a good example was the storm of 2002, where most of the butterflies died in Mexico, but since they had a really good spring and summer in the United States and Canada, they almost recover for the next year, that fast. So this cycle is very, very delicate. It's very easy to break it. It depends what happens in Mexico. It depends how the milkweed supply is in the United States and Canada. If there's a drought in the summer and spring in the United States and Canada, then monarchs are going to have trouble. So it can change very fast. And still, please keep in mind we have millions. The least you will see around will be 300 millions. And trust me, you can count them or try to count them if you don't trust them. But there's no way you can tell that there are less butterflies coming unless you're an expert and has been doing this for over 20 years. There's always millions of butterflies surrounding us.
Oh, it sounds just spectacular. Well, probably our most popular question here today is about safety in traveling to the reserves and Mexico City, and there's a request for you to just comment on the safety for travelers in this region.
Yeah, unfortunately, we know that we have this traveling warning in the state of Michoacan. But the state of Michoacan is very big. It's around almost the size of Texas. So it's quite a huge state. And the area where we have more problems with the drug dealers and the drug cartels actually is in the south, around in the coastal areas. This place we're going to visit is very nearby the state of Mexico. It's actually very safe. And just to be on the safe side of the story, we have a lot of friends that live in the town of Angangueo and in cities nearby, and we are always double-checking to see if something's going on or if it's not safe. Of course, we wouldn't take you there. So it's really safe. When the monarchs come into the sanctuaries every winter, there's also extra reinforcement for security from the government, because they send the wildlife rangers and the federal police to patrol not only for tourists but also for the forest. They are protecting the forest. So there's also a lot of reinforcement in security in the area during the monarch season. And Mexico City used to be quite an unsafe place to travel, and I'm glad to say that it's not that bad anymore. If you just stick to a very few rules, it's very safe. It's just like being in New York. If you go to the Bronx, you have to be careful and you have to know where you're going and when you're going. That's the only trick. But it's really safe. We wouldn't do the trip if it wouldn't be safe.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Well, another popular question is about the weather. What will the weather be like in mid-February during the day? Maybe you could just talk about weather in general.
Hey, well, thanks for that, because weather, talking about weather is just like almost like reading a glass ball or something. It's never nothing sure about the weather. But in general terms, it can be very chilly during the night, and then it goes warming up through the day. So the idea is we always layer up with clothing. So we just go undressing a little bit through the day, and then as the sun goes down, we start putting all our layers on again. This is our dry season of the year, but nevertheless, sometimes there's a little bit of rain on the winter. Usually February should be quite mild, a little bit more sunny. We are at the highlands, but in the highlands the weather changes very fast. So a regular weather will be sunny and cloudy throughout the day, and it's always a little bit like that. The last year, for instance, was sunny almost every day, all the time. And as we approach March, it's usually warmer. But you never know, the 2002 snowstorm was right in March when it's supposing to be warming up. So in general, it will be a little cold between the 30s to probably in a very warm day, the high 70s. So big differences in change. And a little bit warmer if we are lucky, if we have sun, a little bit warmer in February and March than in January. But it's difficult to say. I hope this helps you make your mind.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. So another popular question is about how fit you have to be. Are there any, would the trip be too difficult for someone who might have walking challenges?
Well, usually if you have knee issues, it will be a challenge, basically because the trails are steep. And for persons with knee problems, going down the hill can be quite difficult. I will definitely recommend to try getting fitted for the trip before doing it, walking a little bit every day before going on the trip. We always take our time, so that's important. It's no hurry, but definitely it helps to be in a better physical condition. Even I do a little bit of exercise before going because now I live at sea level. So if you live at the mountains like in Colorado, it's a piece of cake. But if you live at sea level, just the altitude is more the difficulty than anything else. The walking is not long. We're talking about a mile and a half. The horseback riding is quite easy. The longest rides will be 45 minutes each way. Usually is half an hour. So it's not that long, but then again, the altitude takes a toll. So definitely it's moderate. It's not easy, but everybody has done it. We have had travelers in their 80s done it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And as far as best time to travel, is there a better time to view the monarchs, perhaps when they're arriving or when they're leaving, or does that really matter?
No, it's the same. And it's hard to tell. Depends on what you're interested. Let's say if you want to see the mating of the monarchs, you will like to try to take a trip kind of like at the end of the season where you have more chances, but we can never promise because it's not like a specific date when this will happen. But besides the mating, it's pretty much the same from January to February. The rest of the sightings will be very similar, and what will make the difference is if we have very sunny days or a little bit of cloudy days in the middle. That's the only thing that makes the difference, and that's very hard to plan or predict.
Yeah, I would think so. So do any of the trips include the Day of the Dead festivities?
No, actually, the Day of the Dead festivity is on November the 1st and the 2nd, and that's just when the butterflies are arriving at the sanctuaries. And the sanctuaries are not open to the public until the end of December. Because remember that when they arrive to Mexico, they are going to hibernate and recover from their journey, so we don't want to bother them. So tourists are not allowed until monarchs are starting to get active around.
Ah, okay. Well, that makes sense. Thank you. And let's see, is excessive touching of the butterflies dangerous or toxic to humans?
And dangerous what? Sorry?
Well, there's a question about whether there would be any danger to humans in touching the butterflies.
No, not at all. I know we all got those stories when we were little kids, and if you touch the butterfly wings and then you rub your eyes, you can have sight problems, but that's really not true. There's no problems for us. Of course, if you want to go eating the butterflies, which is forbidden, I'm sure you're going to get sick as the blue jay, but still we don't do that. So there's really no hazards at all.
Okay, good. There was a question when you were talking about counting the butterflies. Are there other ways of counting the butterflies without using a snowstorm?
Sure. The way they are counting butterflies now is more than counting how many butterflies, they're counting the area. So they're counting how many trees are covered with butterflies. So now the counts go by acres. So how many trees and how many acres covered with butterflies you have, and that's how the numbers are coming out now, by area but not by numbers.
Okay, that makes sense. What about children? Are children allowed on any of these tours, and if so, what would the youngest age be?
Children are definitely allowed, and actually we do these trips during the week and not the weekend, because that's when a lot of Mexicans travel to see the butterflies, and they come with their kids all the time. It's a nice family trip. And with Natural Habitat, we can run family departures if there are many kids involved. We usually will recommend kids 8 or older to come on the trip, but we have taken younger kids depending how used they are to travel. You have to keep in mind that there are some long driving transfers. The transfer from Mexico City to Angangeo before going to the Monarchs is about 4 hours, 4 hours and a half, depending on how long it takes us to live through the traffic in Mexico City. So that's why it will be a little bit more difficult for the kids. Once they're in the sanctuaries, they're really usually running up the mountains. The parents are having more trouble keeping up with them. And the only issue is we have to keep them as quiet as possible when we are visiting the monarchs, but we haven't had any trouble with that. So just depends on your own kids, how well traveled they are, but of course, they are welcome if they're 8 or older. And if not, just inquire and we'll check it out.
Great. So group size, what are the group size for these tours?
The maximum travelers we take is 15. And we always have this rule that over 7 travelers, you will have 2 guides. 2 of us will be leading the group. So we always want to be sure to give this personal attention and be able to take care of everybody. So 15 will be the maximum with 2 expedition leaders.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. All right, I think I'll make this our last question. This question is, do you feel global warming is affecting the butterflies?
That's a tricky question, and probably it is. We are having warmer winters every time in Mexico, warmer and drier, and we see the butterflies being more and more active every winter, which is great when you're visiting to see them flying every day all over the place, but we know they're expending energy. It's difficult to track, but the drier and warmer everything is, so also there's going to be less food source for the monarchs, less milkweed. So it could be that global warming is having its impact in the monarchs, and that's why the population is declining. But it will be very early to really be sure to say that. We have to wait, but it's a probability for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, okay, I said that we were done with questions, but this one, let's finish off with this one because I think a lot of people want to know about this. And you talked about needing to adjust to the high altitude. Do you recommend that people come in a day early, or what else can you recommend other than coming in a day early to prepare?
Well, definitely exercise at home. Go out for walks, or even try to throttle or run a little bit if you're at sea level, because the problem is the altitude. So when you arrive one day early to Mexico City, or when you are at high altitude, what happens is you're lacking oxygen. And when your body starts getting adjusted to the high altitude, it starts building up more red blood cells. So it starts carrying more oxygen to your body. And this takes around 2 to 3 days, depending on the persons, to start happening. So basically, by the end of the trip, you are in really good shape at high altitude. So if you arrive one day early, and basically if you live at sea level, that would be the best way, besides also doing a little bit of exercise at home previous to the trip.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, this has been fascinating, Astrid. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And I want to turn it back over to you for anything else you might like to share before we go.
Well, I just want to say thank you, all of you, for joining me and staying along for this hour. I hope I clear all the things about them, or a few things about the monarchs, because there's still many mysteries to learn about these fascinating creatures. I hope you enjoy it, and I think that'll be it. It's a really beautiful trip, and Mexico is a great country, so hope you join us. Thank you.
So that's all for today. Thanks again, everyone. And with that, we'll say good day and conclude our webinar. Bye.